Betancourt, urban planner by day, author and explorer of all things by night. So, welcome back to the program. I'm really excited to introduce my guest. Not actually her first time on the program, because if you were watching a couple of days ago, she was a special guest on the South Florida Writers Roundtable. But we wanted to spend more time with her and get to know her better and her publishing company and all the great things that they are publishing. So welcome back to the program, Tabitha Rose.
Thank you. It's so nice to be back.
And Tabitha, let's start off with you and what you do and Life to Paper.
Yeah, Life to Paper. So I am the founder and publisher at Life to Paper Publishing. Life to Paper also has a nonprofit arm. It's simple, the Life to Paper Foundation. And I started this company 11 years ago. So September will be 11 years. And what we do is we help people put their life stories to paper. And our wheelhouse, what we're known for is stories that touch on mental health, addiction, trauma, abuse, complex family dynamics, and health and wellness as a whole. And why we tell these stories and promote these stories is with our goal of writing a better future to help people overcome, get through difficult things, and go on to live better lives.
That's amazing. And so you don't shy away from the hard stuff. I mean,
No,
you
the
embrace
tough
it.
stuff
Yeah.
is our jam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have kind of a personal, what's the word, I guess, motivation here. You've lived through some tough stuff yourself, which is why you can relate to a lot of this, right? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I started out, doors were and hearts were open to all kinds of stories, all kinds of genres. And so I definitely tried a lot of different things. But after some time, I found, looking back, where my heart was and what the books I felt I was best able to promote, to sell into the market, which is my job as a publisher, were the ones that touched on overcoming addiction, overcoming mental health challenges, highly stigmatized subjects. And it's clear why. It's because I myself have overcome mental health and addiction as well, and I'm in recovery. So of course those stories, like, I know them well, I've lived it. Not all of them exactly as they happened, but the emotional journey I certainly understand and relate to, and living in it and still seeing how many people are unwell and haven't found their way to recovery or freedom. I mean, has motivated me to want to tell these stories, especially the ones that are, carry with them a lot of stigma. They're hard to talk about for that reason.
And I've had several authors on this program, and writing my own book, I've come to learn that writing isn't just a profession. It's therapy. And it's amazingly therapeutic and cathartic. And I don't know that, at least I didn't go into writing, for that. And yet it has been, wonderfully cathartic for me. And I've sensed that other authors have kind of gone through the same.
Yeah.
Whether it's fiction or nonfiction, somehow or another, you're working through personal demons through writing.
Definitely.
And gosh, you feel so much better at the end of it.
Definitely.
So it's both kind of personal, but then you're also sharing that story with others who may be going through the same thing. And it could be extraordinarily powerful thing. And I imagine you see a lot of that in what you do.
Yeah. I try to remind people that I work with, I'm not a therapist. And so I'm clear, like, potentially acting as one could cause more harm than help. So I have to try to stay in my lane as much as possible. But I know that, putting life to paper is therapeutic. And I've seen people like heal from the process. All kinds of stories. From one of the first people I worked with, my early days, where I was actually ghostwriting at the time. So most of my job at that point was actually doing the writing, so spending time with people. And this man was going through something incredibly hard. He was losing, like, his wife to Alzheimer's, slowly and painfully, like right in front of him, over years. And she'd lost her ability to talk and care for herself in any way. And he was going through a hard thing, and I was the first person he sat down and, told their whole story to, and talked about what was going on. And at this point, we're still having conversations. I'd started writing, but I hadn't shared anything with him. And he stopped me one day in mid conversation, and he said, if you never hand me a book, this will all be worth it.
Mm.
And I said, what do
Wow.
you mean this? Like, the point is the book. And he said, no, the point is this. Like, this has helped me more than anything. And I don't know what you're going to do he's a doctor, retired doctor at the time. He said, I don't know what you're going to do in the future, but this is something. And I didn't really believe it at the time. It took me a few more times of hearing that to really say, okay, like, this is helping people heal. And I think that's when I decided to start the foundation and think like, okay, people hiring me are able to, right? It requires a like financial investment to hire a ghostwriter.
Right.
But what about all those who don't have that privilege, right? What about those who are like really had hit rock bottom and have landed in a halfway house or a shelter or a treatment center? Like, how do we bring that healing opportunity to them? And that's why the foundation started, because I wanted to do that. And one of the other amazing stories about the healing, like the healing power of putting your life to paper is, I was contacted by a man, also a former retired doctor here in Miami, and he told me he wanted to write his life story for his grandchildren, and he was in the midst of doing that, and he didn't know if any of them would care. And so that was, kind of broke my heart a little to think like, he was writing a story and hopefully they would read it, but probably not. And that's all he told me. And I read a bit about it. It was an interesting story of where he came from and his career. And he would, you know, tell me, he'd send me an email and say, here's the final manuscript. And then a couple days later, he'd say, hold the presses. I've got more to add. And this happened for months and months and months. I started thinking, this guy's never going to finish writing his book. Like, how am I going to get it out? Like, he just keeps writing. And that's all I knew. I like to form like personal connections with the people I work with. So he'd mentioned that he said it was a group for old folks that he joined to do plays and drama. And they were performing. And I said, I'd like to come. He said, really? I said, yeah, I'd like to come. So I went, and there I met his wife. And she pulled me to the side and she said, I don't know if probably hasn't mentioned this to you, but he has Alzheimer's.
Mm.
I said, no, he's not mentioned it. And there was no indication based on any of our conversations that this is the case. And she said, yeah, I figured he didn't tell you, but I just wanted you to know. And so the cat's out of the bag, and I know now. I said, knowing this, I went about things a little differently in terms of like the pressure on completing the manuscript. I felt like maybe he was writing because that was helping him kind of combat like the progression of the disease. And I realized, and he realized it was like writing his life story became his defense against dementia. And
Like they tell you to do crossword puzzles and everything, write a book.
Yeah. And he didn't want to stop because he feared when he stopped, then it would take over. So I said, I don't care if he writes for the rest of his life, if this is helping him, right? Just let him. And then I had this moment of like, wow, this is really, now we have this like proof, right? That it's like life story writing is like, helping him, not have Alzheimer's take over. And it was really powerful. And it became the title of the book, My Dementia Defense.
Mm-hmm.
And I got an email from him a few months ago, and he sent it to a whole bunch of people in his life. And he said, I wanted you, like, he'd been fully diagnosed by the head of the department and everything here in Miami. And he wrote an email saying, I've just got confirmation from my doctor. I no longer have Alzheimer's.
Wow.
And he said, there's two potentials. I was misdiagnosed, or I healed myself.
Yeah.
Basically. And he goes, I want to believe that's the case.
That's incredible. And
that was the last thing I've heard from him. So to the extent that like this could potentially, take up arms against like insidious disease like Alzheimer's is pretty incredible.
Wow. I imagine someone has studied this, but if not, you could be on the cutting edge of this.
Yeah.
One thing I pick up from you and is incredible empathy. And I think you were destined to do this. I believe in destiny and fate. And perhaps in order to do this well, you had to go through your own struggle, right? Have you ever I would
Yeah,
imagine you've had those thoughts that you are doing what you were meant to do in this world, but you had to go through that first in order to do it properly.
I think so. Because I remember going through what I was going through in like the darkest days. I don't think there was one rock bottom. I think there were several,
Mm.
several. And then they say like rock bottom is when you stop digging. So I had to keep digging and keep digging. But I always knew better. And that's what was gave me that such a mental twist, is that while it was happening, I remember feeling like, why? Like, this is so weird and I know better, but I can't stop. Um, that's why I think a lot of it came with a lot of shame, because, I'd see other alcoholics and addicts, and it seemed like they just lived out loud. I am who I am, and this is what I do. And I kind of envied them because I couldn't be like that. 'Cause part of me was like, I can't fully just embrace this lifestyle. Like I'm fighting it. I'm really still fighting it. And I remember being, yeah, so confused and felt so alone. And yeah, why is this happening to me? I swore this wouldn't happen to me. I knew it happened to my father. I knew a little bit about that. And I swore it would never be me. I could be anything, but I'd never be that. And here I was. And I hope now it helps me do my job better, connect with people, like give them a safe space to tell their story, to share things they've never shared before, and share the parts that, often people come to me and they're like, okay, I'm going to tell my story, but I'm going to tell this version. And they're pretty sure about it. And then we get to a point where, they'll tell me, wow, I swore I wasn't going to share this part. I wasn't going to get
Yeah.
into this. And then they see the value of sharing it. They think about
And
the
then they're so
person
happy
who's
they,
there. Yeah. And often those are the parts that people relate to the
sure,
most. They're
sure.
the parts that people say, I thought it was just me, you know? I'm really happy you shared that. And that's happened with my story too. All the weird parts that I swore as they were happening, I was burying, like never, never, never. Those are the parts that when I found the courage to share about have been the ones that people really connected with the most.
Yeah, you hit that the truth. The truth hurts, but it's in that struggle that we evolve, right? I mean, I personally think that's why we're on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
what is it? Life is the school, love is the lesson.
Oh, I
And it's
like
the
that.
school of hard knocks. Like you really have to experience, the harder things
Yeah.
to really get to a point where you evolve.
Mm-hmm.
But the first part is, kind of tackling it head on.
Yeah.
What we do as humans is we bury it and we bury it and bury it. I believe over multiple lifetimes, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, through
Yeah.
writing, you're able to finally kind of tackle those things.
Mm-hmm.
And in that honesty, you release it
Mm-hmm. I
and heal
believe,
others.
yes. And I believe in like there's evidence about the emotional processing. And how I see it visually is like, at least for myself, and I think for others, they've expressed this too, is like, I don't know if you know this, maybe it's a female thing, but when your necklace gets tangled, you taken off a necklace and you put it
Yeah.
away, and then you go to take it out and it's got like
Yeah.
all these
All the
knots,
knots.
like it hasn't moved, but somehow it's got all these knots, and it's so and you're trying to pick at these knots, and you think like you're never going to get it unknotted, but you keep picking at it. And then, almost to the point where you're like, I think I'm just going to throw it away because I'm never going to get these knots out. And then you keep going. And then there's like, all of a sudden comes,
Ta-da.
and that relief from it is like what is emotional processing. And I think what happens like to me when I'm writing about through difficult things is that I feel like this knotted up thing inside of me I carry with me. And somehow it releases through the writing
Yeah.
process, and I experience some relief.
Now, I'm sure you're relieved that an event that you came down here for is behind you because those could always be
Yeah.
stressful. So let's talk about that. The Light Within the Walls by C.P. Handler. So this is a
Mhm.
wonderful book that you have published and just had its book launch at Books and Books. Shout out Co.
They are wonderful,
They
by the
are.
way.
So what was that book about? And tell us how the event went.
Yeah, it's amazing. CP Handler is a social worker, works in prisons,
Hmm.
and she started working in the juvenile system. So she worked with young incarcerated men, teenagers, effectively, in some of what she calls the worst institutions in the country.
Hmm.
for corruption,
Oh.
and for programming and the resources she had at her disposal or not to be able to help these young men. And she tells her story, and in their stories, what she, we often, society sees these young people like uh, labeled with the worst thing they've ever done, but they rarely see the human beings underneath and the impossible circumstances they're born into. And it's really her fight for reform in the system. She felt like she's had this book in her for some years. I remember meeting her a few years ago and her telling me a little bit about her story and me getting full body goosebumps, like while walking with her on Miami Beach, hearing her story. And it was very difficult for her to write. In fact, when she started 2 years ago, it sent her, back into like, PTSD, and she had to recover over the course of weeks from just simply sitting down to attempt to write. And she said, I think you're the one to help me, and let her know that like she'd be totally wholly supported through the writing process, right? And like she'd be given a safe space to do that to the best of my ability, right? And so we began, and she 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 wrote it, and we were well on our way, and went through all the stages of like production, editorial, design, and that was it was almost 2 years ago to date that we took that walk together. So coming back here to like celebrate it and hold it in our hands and see it reach the people she's intended it to reach is like pretty special. So yeah, the event's done. So all the lead up to that and all the work going into it is done. But I also like it's the first of hopefully what will be many, because I think it's more than just a celebration of the book. It was having a conversation around,
Yeah.
juvenile justice and what it's like, and the change we hope to see through these conversations are really important for that change to happen, because this room was like so unique. Like never in my life did I think in one room you would see, this is CP, this is who she brings together. You'd see, corrections officers, formerly incarcerated, men, um, the head of the Miami Port Authority, I believe, um, sober people in recovery, Orthodox Jews, like all in one room, like engaging in a conversation and learning, and like, as a result of that, going back into the world and feeling really motivated to try and help create this change somehow.
That's incredible.
And it was really cool. So this will be the first of many. Like her aim is like she's not going to stop. Like she's going to continue. Like her life's mission is this.
And she's here in Miami, right?
She's here in Miami, yeah.
So we won't talk more about it because I want to have her on the program.
Yes, please.
Yes, no, absolutely. We're going to reach out shortly
Yeah.
after this show.
Yeah.
So, and again, shout out to Books and Books, because, they really have become this community center, this gathering place
Yeah.
for these important conversations.
Exactly. Like
And
they
it's
open
like
their
a warm hug, so you feel like you can have these open conversations there.
Yeah. They open their doors and their hearts to
Yeah.
like really important conversations. And that's, ours are, we deal with the tough stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not everyone opens their doors to us. Sometimes it's like, our books, touch on all kinds of things, like from sibling sexual abuse, like a memoir. So like that was a topic that the media did not want to touch when Jane started speaking about it before she finished the book. She'd get, doors kind of closed and be, not interested, or that's icky. Icky, you don't want to talk about it. And she's over the course of years said like, these are the statistics in households like affected by this. We need to talk about it.
Yeah.
We need to talk about prevention, because it is preventative, but like, look what happens when it happens and it's not talked about. And both the survivor and the child who caused harm, who becomes an adult, like they carry this with them and all the shame with them for the rest of their lives. And her memoir details how it, can seep into every area of your life if you don't address it. So she's worked really hard to do that. But I tell our authors, like sometimes a lot of our books, because they touch on like food addiction or sibling sexual abuse, and don't always expect people to be raising their hands saying, I read this book and I loved it. It helped me so much, because it's kind of outing themselves
Yeah.
for that thing they're going through that often they don't want people to know. So where they get, kind of the validation and satisfaction is they get a lot of times like for personal, private messages, just saying, thank you. Like, thank
I
you
would
for sharing your
imagine. Yeah.
story. Or thank you for sharing your pathway to heal from XYZ because it helped me. But you might not get like, the hundreds of thousands of reviewers
Mhm.
out there saying, because the people suffering in silence don't want people to know, but your book reaches them nonetheless and they let you know.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about that. And speaking of powerful stories, you put together an anthology, I think not too long
Mm,
ago as well. It's called When We Forgive.
yeah.
And this was a live storytelling project addressing forgiveness through addiction, recovery, trauma, family dynamics, identity, and healing. That sounds like
Yeah.
a very powerful book. So tell us
It's
about
really
When We
special.
Forgive.
When we forgive, when you say like I put together, I don't feel like I did because it wasn't my idea. It was my editorial director, Don.
Hmm.
He works with all of our authors.
Why, here's amazing.
He's amazing. And he's the kind of like compassion and
Yeah.
empathy. Like he models, like I want what he has. And I'm so lucky to have him in my life, in my orbit. But he, working with all our authors and getting to know them well, like I do, is like, what if Life to Paper were to produce like a collection of stories and our authors and maybe others would participate and the book can raise money for the nonprofit arm. I said, I love this, Don. Like, thank you. Amazing. Well, what do we do? He said, well, we have this author community, where we gather everybody and we communicate with one another. He said, float the idea out there and I'm sure some people will be interested. So I did. And there was no topic. There was no, this is what
Hmm.
we're going to write about. It was who'd be interested in a project like this, like a giving back project. And, you're not going to earn any royalties off the sale of this book. So it's completely voluntary. Life to Paper, puts in, the editorial and design and marketing, production and everything. And everybody contributes their story and
All
service.
original works? Yeah.
Yes. And of course, our community, oh, I would love to, I would love to. So we just gathered everybody and we started having conversations, and I started, thinking of different people who were outside of our community, but maybe, I'd heard them share their story a little bit, or I had a sense they might have something to contribute. And through this conversation, we landed on forgiveness. That's what kept coming up,
It's the common thread, right? Yeah.
the common thread. And we said, okay, who are we here to help? We're here to help the person who feels like forgiveness is impossible right
Mm.
now. It's extremely tough to talk about. And whether it's forgiving somebody else
Right.
or being forgiven for harm they've caused. Some of the stories talk about being the one who's caused harm and being in need of forgiveness or desiring forgiveness. And the weight, it carries not having that and having found it when it was incredibly hard. So everybody was on board. So then we went off, we started writing. And Don, supported us and guided us. And I did as well, like, helping facilitate, the project and the timelines. And everybody who participated, like, contributed in a different way. So from editorial to design and so forth. And the book came to me and it was like, whoa, I really love this book. Like, the people really like I mean, in service, but really laid themselves bare with these stories and like tough stories. Mine too was a tough story to tell. And I was the last person to submit my draft,
Mm.
like so embarrassed. Like, I'm the publisher and I'm like the last through the door. Cause I'm just like, I wanted to tell a story where I had a moment where I know forgiveness happened. So I could build it around that moment. Um,
In
where,
this
where
case, was it you forgiving someone or being
it
forgiven?
was forgiving my father. Um, and why it was tough is because we don't have this perfect relationship today where forgiveness has happened and run off into the sunset. It's
Right.
not anything like that. But I've forgiven, I've let go of the past, and it's given me a lot of freedom. And there's certainly more that I need to forgive. And I need to forgive in spite of never receiving an apology from him, but I have to forgive anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I have to forgive, like, it's a life-saving mission for
Sure.
myself
Sure.
because I know that for me to stay well and stay alive, stay sober, I need to let go. And I found a way to do that, but I treated it like, a mission to save my life,
Well,
to keep what I had, which was finally like freedom and peace.
You
And
seem very at peace, I have to say.
lately, yeah.
Yeah. Especially with the event behind you.
Yeah. Well, now I know what peace is. I think I
Yeah.
heard people talk about it. I'm like, that sounds nice. I don't wanna, because even though I think it's finally finding a place now where people always used to tell me, you're so calming.
Mhm.
That hasn't changed outwardly, but I'd always look at them puzzled because I didn't never felt that way inside. Like you see me that way, this isn't this doesn't match the inside. I think I've come to a place now where the outside matches the
That's great.
inside, or at least I'm closer to that. Yeah, you might experience me as calm and I feel that way most days. I could still get all twisted up real quick, but I
Sure.
I feel like I have tools
You have
for
coping
that.
mechanisms.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Mhm. And I know what peace is now, so I think I know that that's now the goal.
And you've learned so much just from what you do. I mean, it's
From the people.
you've got your own therapists and they're your writers.
They are incredible.
Yeah.
Like one of my authors, I honestly feel like it's really interesting our lives. Him and his wife weren't able to have children, so they don't have children of their own. He got sober the year I was born. And so I always think about like, you know, what if, I was like plucked into that family and that was my
Mm,
parents and my father had gotten sober when I was
mm,
born instead of like when I was 28
sure.
and you know, and I'm sure he thinks too like what would it be like to so we've had a lot of those conversations and he has sort of become like a father figure to me and to the extent that like I just mentioned I had like I love music but I want to learn how to play the guitar and I set up an event for him, an author talk, and he opened his trunk and handed me a guitar. And he
There you
said,
go.
"Here's your guitar." Like, that's so nice. And like in a couple of weekends, I'm going up to another one of our authors and her husband. They have uh, like a lake house in Canada, and we're going up there with the dogs and spending the weekend with them. It's like I get these like incredible people in my life,
What an incredible
like
life. Yeah.
friendships, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
As real as it gets.
yeah. I when I'm sitting down to talk to someone about like potentially working together, it's definitely about the book. It's definitely about the story and like
Hmm.
the writing and it has to have merit for sure. And it has to practically like I have to be able it has to fit our publishing program. I have to feel confident I can sell it into the market. But I also think to myself, like, in 5 years, am I gonna want to be sitting with this person having lunch?
Mm,
If it's a no, it's probably gonna be, not the right fit, because that's important to me. I think the relationship's really important to me. Like, if
that's
I
great.
feel like we can because it's a grind, like, no matter how you slice it, no matter if you've got a following of 500,000 or 500, whatever the case is, like, it's a grind either way. Um, how are we gonna a lot of people we work with obviously have overcome adversity, but I was telling Amy earlier actually, I was like, all of that gets tested in the author journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so
I'm
interesting.
feeling it now.
Right? Like it's not
It
easy.
isn't. Yeah.
Um,
And I've said it several times. The writing is the easy part. It's everything else. It's just you have to be an entrepreneur, you have to be a promoter, you have to be, your own IT director. I mean, it's
yeah.
endless.
Hmm.
Um, which is why it's helpful to have a publisher, right?
Yeah.
To take on some of those responsibilities. I'm not benefiting that from that myself, but
Yeah.
it's great that you have this wonderful service, this publishing house,
Hmm.
um, to provide that support
Hmm.
to those who need it. So, in the few moments we have left, tell us a little bit more about um, your publishing house and other than the subjects you touched
Hmm.
on, what else makes it different? I understand you're a hybrid publisher. What does that
Yeah.
mean?
Hybrid is
And if
the
someone is interested in maybe reaching out, they may have one of these types of stories
uh
that they think you can help them with. How should they go about that?
The best way to do that is on, through lifetopaper.com, our website. We have a submissions page, which should tell you, I think, a bit more about us and let you know if, we may be the right home for you and your story. And then we ask for a book plan to be submitted, and we provide, like, I think, really helpful book plan guidelines that I think even if you're going to work with us or somebody else, or self-publish. I think the book plan is really important to get an author thinking about the right things and mapping out, a strategy. And then, submissions come in, and obviously we review them, and based on that, it helps us see if it might be a good fit for us. Not all are. It sort of seems like to be recently like 80-20. 20% are a good fit and 80% are not. So in order to be considered a hybrid publisher officially and meet criteria, you have to you can't accept every submission you receive. That would make you more so a publishing services company.
Right.
Because we have, a catalog and a program and an identity built around that. So getting to be known in the market for those subjects. But yeah, we accept submissions. But I mean, sometimes I like meet people on the street and they'll tell me their story. And I'm like, wait, so not everybody goes through that like traditional submit through our submission portal. But I will suggest those people I meet that I feel there's something there to put forth a book plan, because I think it's a prudent exercise for any aspiring author to go through.
No literary agent necessary.
No agent necessary. Reaching out directly for sure. I think a lot of the appeal, or why people do the hybrid solution is because a lot of people who look at the traditional pathway and they look at, okay, what's the timeline going to be from now until my book's in the world? And that looks like,
if it ever
gets if is a lot of ifs, and it's a lot of waiting. And I think those that want a professionally produced book that's going to compete with the big five and sit on shelves next to them, a hybrid's a good solution. But it also requires, on the hybrid model, the authors investing in the cost to produce their book too. So it has to make sense for them that way. But I think the hybrid solution, the space is just growing more and more. And I think in an industry which can be known for gatekeeping a little bit, we're like banging at the gates, and they're like, we've got their attention, and they're like, I don't think we can hold back much more. Like they're coming through, like we're coming through the gates, and it's hard to ignore because there's some incredibly successful, and self-published books, hybrid and self-published books now, where it's like you can't ignore it, right? And when you have, I think the most interesting news piece was about Taylor Swift and self-publishing. In my view, she didn't self-publish. She created her own publishing company, right? It's not exactly that, but she said, I can hire all these people and put a team together and the infrastructure together, and get this out into the world and have like creative freedom. And I think similar to our model, like authors like having that creative freedom, but also working with people, like co-collaborating with people who care.
I think it's fantastic. So having chosen the self-publishing route, and going through all these pain points and continuing, I wish I had studied up on hybrids more. I didn't like the idea of, to your point, of going the traditional route, because of the length of time and just, debut author, it's not, you're not even likely to get picked up by a literary agent, much less a publisher. So I said, I'll just self-publish. But if I had studied it a little further and found this wonderful niche hybrid publishing model, I think that would have been very beneficial, because it's a lot. It's a lot to do on one's own. And
now you can
have
your own publishing company, right?
I'll leave that to you.
No,
you seem much better prepared for that.
I think the best learning is doing it. That's how I learned. I did not study this. I was thrown right into it.
I've got my day job. I'm happy there. I'll stick to it. Listen, Tabitha, I want to thank you for being on the program and for everything you do. Honestly,
thank you.
You're doing God's work, and your authors are amazing.
I hope so.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
Anything I can do to support, please let me know. Any authors that come through Miami, send them my way. Definitely having CP Handler on the program if she's willing to be on.
She would love to.
And I think you may have mentioned the website, but just one last shot for those who want to learn more about you and Life to Paper.
Life2paper.com, and it's TO, not the number 2, life-to-paper.com. And we're on all social media platforms as well, but you reach out to me directly at Tabitha@life2paper.com. I'm pretty accessible.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Folks, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, share this program. This was a powerful one. People need to hear it. I also want to thank our partners in this, Miami's Community Newspapers, for producing the program, and in particular, Anzoni behind the screens and cameras here does a great job. That's all the time we have here. So until next time, keep reading, keep writing,